Gospel according to St. Luke, the 9th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Now, about 8 days after these sayings, Jesus took with him Peter and John and James and went up on the mountain to pray. And while he was praying, the appearance of his face changed and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly they saw two men, Moses and Elijah, talking to him. They appeared in glory and were speaking of his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now Peter and his companions were weighed down with sleep, but since they had stayed awake, they saw his glory and the two men who stood with him. Just as they were leaving him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah," not knowing what he had said. While Peter was saying this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were terrified as they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my Son, the chosen. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. And they kept silent in those days, telling no one any of the things they had seen. This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. I love to cook. I love sleight of hand magic. I love building computers. I even love putting together IKEA furniture. Okay, that last one might have been a little bit of a stretch. But I love these things, and the reason I love these things is I love following directions. I love seeing patterns in things. I love moving along and seeing something get created out of seemingly nothing. So when I'm creating something and I forget a step, or more honestly, when I pass over a step or I haven't paid attention to a step, I get really frustrated. Really, really frustrated. Which is probably why the whole IKEA furniture thing might be just a little bit of a stretch. Though YouTube and time-lapse videos, yes. But when you are following the directions, or you're following maybe a recipe in front of you and you're moving through it and you get to a point and it doesn't work and you realize that you have possibly skipped a step, frustrated is a kind way of saying your emotion. I mention this because the gospel lesson is like that. I feel like Peter, I forget steps, or I forget the main point, or when I read the gospel lesson, I forget the whole main point of this gospel lesson. The story in this gospel lesson is fantastic. I mean, it's amazing. It has lights, it has smoke, it has action. It's like a rock concert where you've seen the opening act and you're waiting for the main event. The smoke machine is gone in full swing, and Peter gets it. Peter gets Elijah, Peter gets Moses, and Peter gets Jesus. Peter gets the entire light show. Now, I say Peter, and we know that James and John was there because it says it, but Peter is the one that says the things. Peter's the one who does the Gucci sandwich, you know, the foot and mouth kind of thing. I think we all can relate to Peter sometimes around that foot and mouth. I know I can. So all of this is going on. The light, the smoke, the clouds. We have Elijah and Moses, 2 other superstars. And Peter seems to forget why they're up there in the first place. It's like he's stepped over the first list in the IKEA directions. What is that? This piece or that piece? Or do I have all the pieces? Or perhaps when the recipe says, when you preheat the oven, make sure you remove the Tupperware that you're storing there. I don't say that from experience at all. But what was the reason that they were at the top of the mountain? They're at the top of the mountain because every time that Jesus withdraws and goes to the top of the mountain, he's there to pray. He's there to pray. Now, Elijah and Moses are up on the mountain with Jesus as well. And some scholars will say that Moses equals the law and Elijah equals the prophets. But for me, it's a lot simpler than that. Moses saw God up on the top of the mountain, and Elijah saw God on the top of a mountain in the small, still voice. They're up there for one reason, and that's to be with God. Now, Peter, in the excitement, in the confusion, in the absolute terror, forgets this, and he locks up. He's like, hey, he does what every guy I know, when we don't know what to do, we say, let's build something. I don't know what to do, so I've got to do something. I've got to act, and I can't sit. I can't be quiet. I need to do something, because when we get confused, when we get worried, when our hearts get all tied up, we need to get busy. And this is men and women. We want to forget. We want to do something so I can do something other than what I'm called to do. And that's pray. That's take a moment. Because I don't like to wait. I don't like to stop what I'm doing and spend time to just take it in. I wonder if Peter would have just stopped for a moment and said, what's going on here? Or perhaps asked the question, Jesus, what's going on here? I don't like to wait. And I have to be reminded to pray. I have to be reminded to take a moment and breathe. My Apple Watch does a better job at reminding me to breathe than I do, because I don't like doing it. But the grace found in this text is that Peter gets told by God in the midst of saying all kinds of silly things. Basically, God tells Peter to shut up and listen. He says it in a little nicer way. But he says, listen. And listen to who? Listen to Jesus. This is my son, the chosen. Listen to him. Just in case if Peter didn't know who God was referring to. Listen to who? To Jesus. Listen. This is so darn important. It's the crucial point of this entire text. Stop what we're doing. Not forever. The disciples are going to turn and they're going to head into Jerusalem. It's just like next week we enter into Lent and we start to head towards the cross. The disciples will move down the mountain and head towards the cross. But at this point, they're called to wait. They're called to listen. They're called to pay attention to the living Word, the Word that became flesh and dwelt among us. And God says, this is my Son, listen to him. And honestly, I'm not that good at it. No, more than that, I'm actually pretty terrible at it. Yet the grace is that God doesn't give up on me or on you. That as I'm speaking, that as I'm rambling on and on and on, God interrupts. And that actually might be our call as well as Christians. To be holy interrupters for one another. To remind one another that we need to take time to pray, to remind one another that we need to take time and be silent, to pay attention. When I was in high school, I had a Commodore 128D. The D tells you it was the top of the line home computer. There's the Commodore, and I had a printer. Dot matrix. Yeah. And I got the job, the wonderful job of installing the printer. And it wasn't working. It wasn't working at all. I wanted to take it, I'm sure many of you can relate to any of this. I wanted to take this printer, it's probably winter time, I wanted to take this and dump it in a pile of snow in southeast Idaho. I wanted to get rid of it. I wanted no part of it. To say I was frustrated was a kind word. And then I hear a voice. It was the voice of my dad, not as high up as Jesus, but nonetheless. And I hear him say, "Leave it be. Just walk away. Come back later." In other words, he was telling me, take a breath. Just leave it. Oh, I fought it. I didn't want to walk away because I knew that if I just spent a little bit more time hitting my head against the printer, I would be able to make it work. But I also knew listening to my dad probably would be a smart choice. And amazingly enough, it worked. I took some time, maybe to read the instructions, I don't know. I can't remember exactly what happened other than the fact that I came back. And when I went through these things, maybe I was not forgetting the step that I was skipping over each time. Maybe I remembered to turn on the printer. I don't know. Silly things like that. But giving me that moment, that time away to connect, was what I needed. But what I needed more is I needed my dad to remind me. Those are holy gifts when the people that are around us remind us to reconnect, to be part of, to be the voice of Christ for your neighbor. Marie Jennings, if you don't know who Marie is, Marie and I go visit people. We go visit our hometown. And Marie asked me a question once because Lillian Kyle had brought it up. Lillian was noticing that when we had communion, a lot of times I didn't pray like a pastoral prayer. I mean, we prayed, we said the words of institution, we broke bread and we shared wine and bread and the meal. But then praying for Lillian, taking that time to pause and to pray for what we needed to lift up at that point. I didn't do it. It wasn't that I didn't think it was important, but I had forgotten. We had the meal. We prayed the Lord's Prayer. Those were important things. Yes. But it took Lillian asking Marie, and Marie asking me, and me go, "Oh, of course," to do that. Having holy interrupters in our lives are wonderful things. Having a God that brings them into our lives is a wonderful thing. Taking time and sitting. And in our busy and our hectic lives, paying attention is important things. On Ash Wednesday, as we enter into the season of Lent, I ask that you would find times in these 40 days to take up a practice of paying attention to the God that is in our midst, that is calling you to pay attention to God.